reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you rich. Them will love to see you in a ditch. Them no want to see you on tour. Them no want you get more. So get more, show them you not afraid them. Go and load them. Every human have a something that them destined. That is your destiny. So be what you ought to be. Even them no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you fly. Them no want to see you touch sky. Them no want to see you fly. Hey. Bling bling, now me call it King Kong. Every song I write, hit song. Every song I write, hit song. Tell me something, am I wrong? To believe in myself, put nobody above myself. Energy, energy, build your energy. Love, charity, what a sight to see, what a sight to see. What a colossal, working and working to prosper. What you gonna stop for? Keep on this right on the corner. Hey, make way when I'm weird there. Hey, tell the ears them stay there. Hey, that is your destiny. To be what you ought to be. Even then, no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you fly. Them no want to see you touch sky. Them no want to see you fly. Hey. Them no want to see you fly. Them no want to see you touch sky. Them no want to see you fly. Hey. Never wanna see you fly. Never want you touch the sky. Never, never, never. Reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you rich. Them will love to see you in a ditch.
Yeah, but they can't get it, at least not tonight. And especially if they are asking all fans, they can't get to see nobody in another dish tonight at all, at all, at all. Good night. Sorry for the lateness, but I'm here with you now. Juno decided that today is gonna be a little adventure, so I had to start a little bit late. But hold on, let me put up this. Yeah, somebody putting in that. Well, hopefully we will have a nice, fruitful discussion again this evening. Uh, I debate whether or not I should give you all a few words before. Tonight is not very local. Tonight is all up and down the place. Might use some of the topics to jump into local things, but that is not the aim of this evening. Next week, however, I could promise you is gonna be heavy. with regards to St. Kitts and Nevis topics. But this week is more regional. Some of them touching on St. Kitts and Nevis. Some not so much. Let me start off with this. Oh, first, before I get into everything, I want to start off with an observation. And I was just talking about this, so maybe it's because it's fresh on my mind. I'm still thinking about the SSZ town hall, I would say presentation that NRP had, and I just want to impress upon persons how necessary it is to offer an alternative solution to the current problems that the people are facing. And number one, in understanding the problems of the people, it means not just going to them, but you got to listen, in my opinion, 10 times more than you speak. As a politician, your job is to ask the right questions. Anywhere you turn up within the federation, people are going to want to talk to you, and they're going to want to express to you the issues that they are facing at this time and going forward. And those conversations that you have with people, it is important that you do not hug the mic and you not say this is and that. When you're gonna do that, say you're gonna have a presentation, say you're gonna have a press conference, that type of situation. But when we really dealing with the people, I feel like one of the things we need to do is we need to get to the root of what is a town hall, how it's supposed to be dealt with. We don't, for me, I don't feel like the people feel like they are heard at these events. I think it is mostly a spectacle for those in charge rather than allowing the people to really say, by these are the things that are affecting us, and these are the ways we these are the solutions that we could offer, but we also open to hearing what you have to say with regards to how we need to go forward to be more productive and ultimately to be more prosperous. Um, before I go to the CPL, cause the first thing is a short little thing on the CPL. We go home with that. In offering an alternative, for example, to the SSC, I would point to the fact that if you look at the terrain over there, it's fairly flat land, and you consider alternatives to some of the solutions, some alternatives as far as solutions to some of the problems that we will be facing upcoming. You could look at the fact that a solar farm, some kind of solar project, in my opinion, would do very well over there. And when you think about how far that is from our existing power grid, the fact that we could now create a different power grid and feed into a very heavily populated area in Nevis, I think that some kind of solar project is something that you could look at over there that could solve a lot of problems for Nevisians as far as creating jobs. There are, well, the people who you have to deal with as far as when you're dealing with this project, they are open to not only providing the infrastructure and setting it up, but they are interested in having local persons who could service the equipment while it is there, and who also thereafter could go about the process of installing new equipment. So I just don't, I want to be an example of the change that I want to see. And so I would offer you that as one part of a solution, because you could very quickly from there go on to do other things. Because once you're generating power, now all of a sudden over there becomes attractive as far as being somewhere that people would want to settle down in a Navis. Or alternatively, there are also situations where wind farms have been set up, and this goes to another goal that has been touted by the SSZ, as far as you could know, because you got a wind farm, it gonna actually bring in greenery. So underneath, there are examples where you still have livestock able to graze beneath the wind farms. So you could generate power. It could be a good thing to actually get over there to be a greener part of Nevis. And as I'm saying, if you're doing all of that, suddenly over there may become somewhere that is attractive for persons who say, bah, let me settle down over there. Let me do some agriculture. And it could be a dynamic aspect of Nevis. And by the way, that plan there is free to thief. Uh, um, I kind of think that should be an obvious alternative, but I would be interested to hear any critiques anybody may have, as far as if they feel like what I'm talking about is a good idea, a crazy idea. Um, I'm only speaking off the top of my head, but I'm telling you that this exists and there are renderings. I'm not talking about like we got to do AI, but there are actual examples of these projects going on right now today. Anyway, we're gonna move on to the CPL.
CPL fixtures will be played in a record equaling 8 nations this year, with fixtures in Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Ghana, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Trinidad and Tobago. Vale has hosted 36 men's internationals, 5 matches at the 2024 T20 World Cup, which were dominated by spin. The CPL will run from August 7 until September 20 this year and will include a 7th franchise for the first time, with Jamaica Kingsmen joining the league. It will overlap with the men's 100 in England, a clash which will affect Nicholas Puran and Sheffin Rutherford's availability for the final stages of MI London's season. 5 teams will be involved in 3 confirmed fixtures at Vale. The CPL has not yet released a full fixture list, though the 4 playoff matches will be staged at Kensington Oval in Barbados from September 16 to 20. Chief Sergeant, ABS Sports.
Okay. So for anybody who was concerned that there would not be and there would not be any there would not be any, hey, you be here. Ginger, you relax though. For anybody who was concerned that there would not be any CPL this year in terms of think it's not having a team, uh, that is not correct. Apparently, there's another team joining, and they're also gonna have games in St. Vincent. Now, listen to me good. The St. Vincent thing is a trial tour as far as the testing out to see, well, if St. Vincent won a team, so there could be still be some kind of threat in the future. But at this particular moment in time, there is no threat. But you need to pay attention to who is playing the games there and whether any of their home games were taken away. But generally, think it's a needless look. Solid so far. And with regards to it clashing with another league, for those who into the cricket, um, I at this point I don't know anybody could do. It seemed like no matter what happened, as long as you got a bigger dollar, you got more connections, them man gonna go. So I don't know what is gonna take place. There seems to be an ever shortening window of the West Indies domestic season. I can't believe, for example, that the Players Association in the West Indies has not threatened any kind of thing in response to the fact that the domestic season is now a 3-day series. All what you boil down to is playing 3 games of cricket to make West Indies team. To be a professional cricketer, this is first class cricket. It's 3 games. Uh, the West Indies Players Association need new representation. I'm fairly confident in saying that. This next one, I mean, I know might be happening to my picture, but we're gonna listen to this video. This is about Europe, and they're threatening European travel. Oh, oh, this now is gonna get into some politics. We have been speaking about the fact that the let me see something. I look like mystic, you know. Look like mystic, you know. We have been speaking about the fact that the war in Iran will definitely have adverse effects upon people in St. Kitts and Nevis. This was inevitable. And I'm gonna explain after this video some of the concerns I have coming up.
We don't have much jet fuel left, and it's closer to being a problem than we hoped.
In Europe, we have maybe 6 weeks or so jet fuel left.
Airlines don't expect to make their money before July, but when we get there, they expect to make all of their money in a real hurry when the Northern Hemisphere gets warm and we crisscross the globe to relax. Now, at the start of the war on Iran, almost 7 weeks ago, disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz threatened ramifications that seemed way off in the distant future. But it turns out our problems might be closer than we thought. Airlines are still operating, but the warning signs are mounting. Fuel is becoming harder to source, more expensive, and more difficult to move where it's needed. The situation is becoming critical, with the risk that flights could soon be cancelled, at least according to the head of the International Energy Agency.
We are in Europe, we have maybe 6 weeks or so jet fuel left. If we are not able to open the Strait of Hormuz, if the refineries as a result will start to work, I can tell you soon we will hear the news that some of the flights from city A to city B might be cancelled as a result of lack of jet fuel. So some parts of the world are hit worse than the others. The front line is the Asian countries, because Asia, Japan, Korea, India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they were getting big chunk of their energy from this Middle East and from this Hormuz Strait. So they will be at the forefront. Then it will come to Europe and the Americas. We will see the impact of it in 2 big ways. One is the higher petrol prices, higher gas prices, higher electricity prices. The second one is, if it continues like this, if we cannot find a solution, namely opening up of the Strait of Hormuz, we may well see some of the products, petroleum products, may well be absent in the markets.
Well, with all of that in mind, Richard Levy, aviation expert and former airline transportation pilot, joins me now. Richard, you're really well placed to enter the chat on this topic.
Okay, so what I want to interject and let you know is that the price of fuel is going up at the same time as we are about to invest in an airport, which also is going to be producing jet fuel. So this now got implications for Nevis and what we're doing, and it also got implications as far as sinkers. So even though we have had announcements of numerous routes into sinkers now, it's gonna be imperative that they're paying off. If there is a drop off in the amount of people who are traveling now because prices of flights go up, it's gonna affect the government adversely, because remember we have deals whereby we pay for the empty seats. So you travel on a plane and you could sit down anywhere in the plane. These type of situations will be adverse for the government. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I'm just saying that these are the trends, and he explained to you. And you also need to understand, even though there are supplies over in the West, those supplies get bidded up based upon what is going on in other parts in the world. Because there are places in Asia who will buy the barrel of jet fuel for $200, in which case they're willing to even wait until it ship over. And when you're hearing that places like the UK are saying that they got 6 weeks left, you understand the dire straits we must be in also over in certain of these countries at some stage in time. And even if the quantity does exist, the price now is becoming something that is going to affect also your ticket prices. So look out for your ticket prices, and implications of this are also going to go into election. Because, you know, we got 2 elections coming up. That's a lot of charters. The good thing about the charter is that they're going to be mostly full. So, but the prices definitely seem like someone going up on something to pay attention to.
Topic. When you hear warnings like that Europe could run short of jet fuel, how seriously would airlines take all of that?
Well, I think, of course, they'll take it very seriously. And the markets that will be affected, first of all, will be the markets that maybe are between smaller cities and maybe not so profitable. The bigger cities, the London Heathrows, the Frankfurts, the Munichs, example type of cities, will still have a good supply of jet fuel initially. And if the strait does not open up in, let's say, 6 weeks, by the end of May, beginning of June, then you're going to begin to see reduction in service. Prices are going to go up, the fares, and reduction in service will happen. The operations officers in the major airlines, that would be Lufthansa, British Airways, American, Delta, United, will have daily inputs on how the fuel is coming. So on a day-to-day basis, there will be cancellations. Initially, fewer, later on, more.
Right, so we get the idea of this is going to be a stepped process of the problems coming online, if you like. Soon after these attacks on Iran kicked off, we did start to ask the questions of countries. Which country has the most in reserve? Which country has the least? What about major airports? You did touch on it there just a little bit, like major hubs like Heathrow or Frankfurt. They are bigger by volume of traffic in and out. Are they necessarily better protected than the smaller airports, the smaller cities you mentioned?
They're going to have big vehicles delivering fuel from the ports. So they're going to face it. A big a truck is going to carry a lot of fuel, of jet kerosene to Heathrow, to Frankfurt, to the bigger European hubs. And it's just more effective to do that than to go to a smaller city with fewer flights. And you can't waste the fuel or have the fuel sit around.
You're naturally going to be better at interpreting signals from the major airlines than us. We heard the word cancellation and it fell really heavily at the top of our chat coming from the International Energy Agency. The airlines are going to be much more reticent to use that word, I guess. When it comes to interpreting signals, what's the first internal signal that an airline sends that we might miss that tells you we may have a real fuel problem on our hands?
When you're going to have the media, Anthony, at the major airports underneath the arrival and departure signs, and when the camera focuses on the flights from A to B, from London Heathrow to Munich, for example, Zurich, Switzerland, back to Dusseldorf, Germany, and it's canceled, then and now flights cancel, you know that you travel the world yourself, but when the cancellations start to increase, right now they have some labor issues in Germany, and that's not what we're talking about with Lufthansa, but when the cancellations begin to creep up, and it's going to be a day-by-day basis, then we're going to know something is going on there. And also, the reason why some of the major cities may be protected is that when a flight from airline A is canceled, airline B can pick up the slack and carry the passengers that may still be there. So we can take care of our passengers, our guests. That's our main objective in any airline.
The last time we had a massive oil crisis was the 70s. It was a long time ago, and the industry was far smaller than now. Is there...
Well, one thing I want to tell you today, don't trust me. Basically, I come on and I say what's going on, and the expert then, you don't got to believe me. He come on and said the same thing. And I ain't watched the full video, by the way. But this is the circulation of what's going on. He then went on to explain other things, but the key point to note is when he mentioned markets that are not profitable, the smaller markets, those are the markets that are going to suffer first. And so this got the potential, in my opinion, to have the Labour government, in particular, Miss Marsha Henderson, she has to be, at this moment in time, she got to be nervous. Realistically nervous about what is going on. I don't think certain countries going to be affected. There's going to be pullbacks in what could be done. So it might end up being like a partial victory at first, but if these streets don't open, some life-altering events will occur.
Much we can learn from how airlines adapted then?
Yes.
Well, Even before I hear YB, he said the one thing I want people to understand about this situation, the one slight difference, although there is much to learn from the 70s crisis. In that crisis, infrastructure wasn't damaged to the extent that we have now. So, for example, you would hear one of the major LNG ports, they say 5 years, 3 to 5 years. Could be 3, could be 5. So let we say 4. But the damage that is being done right now, and we're still in a blockade situation, and in a situation which, if I had to bet, there will be an invasion at some point in time. This look like a massing situation. But that's how I see that little part there.
As a matter of fact, during this early 70s, that is, of course, a long time ago, there was a lack of fuel coming from kerosene coming from the Middle East due to political reasons. And so, what the airlines learned, of which they are still practicing today and practiced before I retired, is fuel management. If you pick the best route, you pick the highest altitude that makes sense, that is. You pick the aircraft that's most economical to operate on. And that is always going to become better and better. So this is what we learned from that energy crisis in the early 70s, had it again in one of the Gulf Wars, had it again during COVID, had the 9/11 event, but there wasn't many people flying. So there wasn't really a drastic need for the fuel for the first 4 or 5 days after the 9/11 event.
Right, and so when we talk about not as many people flying back then compared to today, one thing that wasn't around or as prevalent, I guess, was the budget carriers in the 70s compared to today. Is that the first place that your eye is naturally drawn, looking for these problems to bear out? These budget airlines, are they naturally going to have these problems sooner than the more established like Lufthansa and Qantas and these type of airlines?
Anthony, good question. No, I don't believe so. They do operate smaller, either Boeings or Airbus aircraft, the budget airlines, but they have volume. They have numerous aircraft. So they're going to need the fuel for their numerous narrow body aircraft versus the Qantases or the Lufthansas or British Airways A380s or 747s or 777 type aircraft. So they have as much right for the fuel. And also, some of the budget airlines in England, for example, have purchased contracts all the way out through the summer. The price will fluctuate a little bit, but some have bought what we call futures. So the price of the fuel is somewhat locked in already. So they'll have a supply.
How quickly can airlines adapt their schedules? I assume at this point, Richard, they're starting to do scenarios on X, Y, and Z. If the fuel doesn't come online more quickly, that they're already planning for major changes to their schedules at this point?
Absolutely are. It's a day-by-day basis. It's not what are we going to do Monday in a week? What are we going to do tomorrow? And what is the fuel supply? How much are we going to have in the U.S. at Dallas-Fort Worth or John F. Kennedy or Chicago O'Hare? Normal deliveries of fuel, of kerosene, there'll be no schedule changes. We see a lack of fuel coming into a big airport like Chicago O'Hare or London Heathrow. The message we send out immediately to the major carriers, whether it's British Airways at Heathrow or Qantas that's getting ready to fly back to Sydney. The Qantas operations in Sydney will have that fuel message. They'll know that they may have to have a delay on that departure out of Heathrow to return to Sydney. So they will have up-to-date information on the fuel situation. Of course, if this thing gets fixed, the Strait of Hormuz, and on both sides and all parties involved shake hands and come to grips, this thing will be something of the past.
And before we go, I guess we have to talk about the worst case scenario for European aviation, as that's where we sit here in Berlin tonight. What is the worst case scenario for aviation here if the fuel supply doesn't stabilise and stabilise soon?
Good question, Anthony. If the worst happens, and we're looking at 6 weeks, 8 weeks, beginning of the summer travel season when people are traveling and have their plans made, the public will have to deal with cancellations. There will be fewer flights. The prices will go up. The European area has a wealthy, generally type customer, and they're going to pay for the higher fares. And when you talk about perhaps the African countries or the Latin American countries, that's where you may not have the passengers ready to pay the fees, the fares for higher travel. But in Europe, you'll just see a reduction in travel, but people will eventually get to where they're going. I feel very certain of that.
Aviation expert and former airline transportation pilot Richard Levy. It's been absolutely wonderful to speak to you. Great to be able to pick your brain at this moment. Thanks so much for the chat.
Thank you, Anthony. Blessings to you all in Berlin.
So with that, what do you think? Thinking about your next trip abroad? Does the lack of jet fuel have you worried? Let us know in the comments. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Bye for now.
Yeah, so you hear him speak about the worst case scenario. Although the Caribbean wasn't mentioned, we would know when we hear these international conversations that when they're speaking about Latin America, that is where we come in. And Latin America was definitely referenced. Once again, this is gonna come down to capitalism essentially. And the nations that prove that they have people willing to pay the price, they will be able to travel. But you will have to pay the price. And once again, I mean, like to consider some of the scale involved, to consider some of the skill involved as far as the money. Let me just say, for example, every international flight, we're not gonna say what the reality is, but we're gonna say every international flight into Bastia costs 1,000 United States dollars, right? Everyone. Okay, if you come from England, no, okay, from Canada, wherever, we're gonna just say it costs $1,000, right? No. We're gonna even say, we're not gonna say it's 2.7, we're gonna say 2.5. We'll keep it raw numbers. That means every four empty seats is $10,000. Okay? 40 empty seats is $100,000. 400 empty seats is $1 million. And on and on and on. So I'm just saying, when you think about the potential impact, and when you think about the fact that the government has already decided that they will be subsidizing fuel costs, it says to me that there is going to be a gap in the standard of living. And so you got to look out for these situations. I feel like things are going to be tough, essentially, especially if the Straits of Hormuz, if this is not ended expeditiously. UK reform. Okay, this are the UK visa video. So let me hear what going on with this. Uh, let me just call it access to the UK.
Political party Reform UK has proposed to deny visas to people from countries seeking slavery reparations from Britain. While not official UK government policy, the statement has ignited concern about the potential implications for citizens across CARICOM seeking reparations, including Grenada. However, chairman of the Grenada Reparations Committee and a member of the CARICOM Reparations Commission, Ali Gill, told GBN that the region will not be deterred.
We believe that.
Well, so you don't hear the first part. If you are one of these nations talking about you seeking reparations for slavery, then there is a political party in the UK. And by the way, the UK, those of you who are there are sometimes those of you who are listening from the UK, y'all could tell me, but from what I understand, the UK in favor of the Labour Party right now. There's something called the Greens. The Conservatives also look like they're kind of old. And so now we have this Reform Party, who some people thought would have really had a chance. And I think the odds makers actually, for those of you who are into the poly market, you could bet on events right now. Eh? You right now you could bet. And if the war with Iran is gonna actually happen, if you're gonna involve ground forces, all these type of things. So if you're seeking reparations, Reform is saying no. But we're gonna hear now from the head. I didn't even know there was a reparations committee. I got to look into this now. We're gonna hear from the head of the reparations committee about the opposition.
This statement by the Reform Party is to daunt, is to intimidate the reparative justice advocacy globally. But we say to them that this would not daunt us. This would not in any way intimidate the voices and the campaign for justice, because this is what essentially that we are doing. And to think that, one, they have colonized these countries for centuries, they have exploited the labor, the resources of these societies for centuries, that a visa is now a privilege to enter their society, seems to me not just hypocritical, but it's a punishment to the victims of the descendants of the slave trade and slavery.
Gill describes the proposal as an intimidation tactic, arguing that it reflects deeper issues still facing formerly colonized nations.
A broad negotiating strategy, and those are the things that we ask for. But we believe that some of it, of what is in the 10-point plan, is non-negotiable, like the apology. And what we've said to them is that areas of economic development is what we are interested in, so that it is not an exhausted list, but we are prepared to listen, and we are prepared to ourselves as well, and our experts in the region, as well as, you know, in areas in which these developed countries can assist our countries to develop.
CARICOM's reparation campaign is guided by a 10-point plan, which calls for measures including formal apologies, debt cancellation, and development support to address the enduring impact of slavery and colonialism. Regional advocates maintain that the push for reparations is grounded in justice and international law, and not politics. The development come mere weeks after the UN recognized the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity, and raises questions about how far countries like the United Kingdom may be willing to go in responding to increasing global calls for reparatory justice, and what that could mean for diplomatic relations with the Caribbean. For GBN News, Janelle Dick.
Mrs. Dick, will I tell you, Janelle Dick, wow, what a name. As she mentioned there, Singis and Nevis has a reparations committee as well. Rascalange, who we interviewed recently, is a member. And so is Carla Astafan. This is good to know. This is why, you see, this is why it's good to have conversation and hear what I go on. Thank you for that. So, see, and that's why. So it does pertain to us. So see how we circle back. We heard from the head there. She would have also mentioned Miss Dick. Miss Dick would have also mentioned that there was a UN resolution passed, I think 145-3. The countries who voted against, to be specific, were the United States, Israel, and I can't remember the third one. But definitely them two countries there. The UK abstained from voting. They decided they do not have any position. The other colonial masters also abstained. So you're thinking about the French, Spanish, etc. They somehow do not have an opinion upon whether slavery was the gravest thing. Maybe they got something or come up with alternative to that. But they have voiced that. So, and well, not voice. They have taken that position, and you can infer from the action that they're taking that they really want to hear about this. So we got. What is it? Okay, Grenada and Venezuela. Yeah, let me cut to this.
Voy a tomar una frase que usted dijo.
And I'm going to use a phrase that you brought up recently.
We all came from the same sea, from the same water. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Acting President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, said the two nations had today set a start date for a series of cooperation programs. The remarks were made following a meeting with Grenada's cabinet during her official visit to the country today, her first official engagement outside of Venezuela since assuming office in January. The countries are marking 49 years of diplomatic ties, with a commitment to continued cooperation. Speaking with the media following the cabinet meeting, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell said the leaders had discussed cooperation in fields ranging from energy, agriculture, education, trade, and tourism. He said dedicated focal points were established to pursue the proposed agreements.
We intend to action many of those items by having dedicated focal groups from both the Grenada and the Venezuela side. And so we are quite happy with the outcome of this working meeting, and we look forward to actioning and implementing those areas for the mutual benefit of the government and people of Venezuela and the government and people of Grenada.
President Rodriguez described Grenada as having set a regional example of perseverance, self-determination, and sovereignty. Like her Grenadian counterpart, she referred to future cooperation across several areas, including educational, people-to-people exchanges. She also highlighted air and maritime transport and the establishment of trade routes.
También hemos abordado en materia de transporte aéreo y marítimo.
We also touched on transport regarding maritime and air transport.
Que podamos dibujar una ruta de comercio exterior para nuestros países.
Which will allow us to work on a route of foreign trade between our countries.
No solamente bilateral, sino que abarque otros países del Caribe.
And not only on the bilateral relation, but also including other nations in the Caribbean.
Deidre Seeley, GBN News.
I feel like that's a very important thing. Me hold the mic like I said it mic open. I feel like that's a very important thing, this Venezuela situation. As much as we are learning to speak Mandarin, there should be almost, when you really think about the Caribbean and who we are surrounded by, there should be more of an emphasis on Spanish, less of an emphasis on French, unfortunately. Just look at the logistics of the world and tell me that, Miriam. And part of our future, if you're gonna hedge properly, is to habla español. Mi amigo, you have to speak some kind of, understand some more kind of, because they are gonna be a very important intermediary going forward, far as I see the chessboard. But yeah, Grenada doing things. Was that the last one? That's it? That can't be all I got. That can't be all I got. I will tell me I got this pile of videos. I will tell me I got this pile of videos in there. You know, make me feel like I gonna be yapping all night. And that's all. Let me see. Grenada, Venezuela, CPL. That is it. Okay. That being the case, it's time for me to talk to Ayo. And if I have any questions, I could get them in. If I want to lead this conversation in any particular direction at this particular moment in time. Now is your time, people. But beyond that, speaking to what I expect throughout the Caribbean, I expect leaders in the Caribbean to go on the defensive and to end up subsidizing a lot of the costs. And I think that this is going to lead to reduced services. The Premier made a statement that I agreed with. He spoke about this. He said it would lead to reduced services, increased debt, and there is no fiscal room, as he said, in the NIA budget to subsidize. I would agree with that assessment. I would agree with all of that, really and truly. That is what will end up happening. In his case, though, and where the opening is in the suggestion I had made at the beginning of the conversation, which is to electrify the grid, to reimagine how we generate power, to listen, if you start to go in the Caribbean towards electric vehicles, you will create a situation where you could actually hear what's going on again. One of the things that has been found when you electrify the grid and you go to these electric vehicles is that you don't have to deal with all of the fumes, number one, and you don't got to deal with the loud engines. So it's more of a kind of little whistle, a hiss, not even a hiss really, but is not that type of sound. So there are also social benefits to be derived from electrifying the grid, from going through this and protecting yourself from any shocks that may be external. So that in the event in the future that there is anything that goes on with with gasoline, you could be insulated from those effects. In addition to that situation, another opening that seems glaringly obvious to me, and this is a situation where, for example, if you think about PAM, and in particular, I ain't even gonna put this on Shanigre. I gonna put this on Mr. Azad Gums. If you listen any real government in the world right now, when they're speaking about their plans, they involve artificial intelligence. You go got something with OpenAI. You go know what Anthropic doing. You go know what these different clouds are capable of. You go know the image ones. All of these, even when they're speaking about this biometrics thing, all of that goes into the same scheme, and it's gonna be necessary going forward. They have an AI right now that found an error in some code that we use on a daily basis. And people have been going through this code for years and years, and this thing was able to spot an error. Now, in the age of AI, if you think about the NIA saying it was hacked some years ago, that is an example, and we did not have the tools that are available in 2022 that we got right now. Right now, what we got access to could change things fundamentally. And in regards to that, you have to be speaking about, you got to be using artificial intelligence and speaking about the adoption. And this is not something where everybody has to do it. But I will tell you, I don't feel like you have to use AI in the future, but you're going to have more opportunities if you do. I think that's definitely going to be the case. And so you need to have a fundamental understanding. I think at this time, listen, I sent my father a video on artificial intelligence. This, if you have loved ones, I'm telling you about, you need to start to speak to them about AI. And we need to also make sure that the school teachers, because I think y'all are gonna start to receive some excellent pieces of homework. And there's no way to know if that's not AI unless you are familiar with what's going on. So I'm not saying that this is anything that we need to run away from. Definitely not. This is something that needs to be explored to determine how best, because I would tell you, it will happen at the Four Seasons. Even without geothermal, you think we could go fully EV using solar and a combination of solar and wind? Okay. Well, let me jump in at that. Now, my answer to you gonna be yes. I do feel like that is possible. Now, what I also want to tell you, and I don't think I've said this publicly yet, but I am of the opinion that the federal government at some stage in time is going to pull out a geothermal. I heard recently at a press conference and in Parliament that the government is seeking tenders for a 50 megawatt solar energy project. 50 megawatts. Right now, they are saying that the base load for SK is, I don't know, 30? 20, something like that. Maybe, listen, actually, it might be in the teens. But either way, 50, when you think about the geothermal plant, what we're talking about, we was talking about 30. So the fact that SK announced that they are going to be doing a 50 megawatt geothermal plant, I'm telling you, they are not going to need our energy. And I feel like that I don't know that they announce it like that is a major plan. This not seem like it well thought out, because they really could have got hard. Labor really could sell a vision with regards to this thing and kind of pull back, claw back some people. But definitely I see, even without geothermal, because you still got to remember, we still gonna use gas. So we not gonna disclose the fact that we still gonna get the power plant. But when we doing that calculation, it's just a matter of figuring out how much cars on the road right now. Figuring out how much it gonna take for all of them to be fully charged. And that would start to indicate to you if we could go fully EV. But that would be the simple maths. And if SK could generate 50 megawatts, I'm saying to you, you look at the South Coast and you tell me if the South Coast Peninsula does not look like eco host solar farm. And as I was mentioning earlier, there will not be any need, if you do this thing in a certain way, that you impede the livestock. As a matter of fact, over they would get more green, they would get more place to roam. Right underneath of the solar farm, and everything will be good, in my estimation. It is the beginning of an alternative. Because from that point there, you could organically now start to see people developing over there. So it wouldn't really it wouldn't depend on destiny, and it wouldn't also Escape planning to add more hotels, Ritz-Carlton amongst others. So they will need that for their future developments. Nevis need addition if they are gonna have Destiny or a similar project. Well, yeah, that's why Destiny also. And to be fair, this is one of the things where if you are Nevis, you're supposed to thief from the Destiny project. Destiny that has made it clear that one of the ways that they plan to power the project is by solar panels. If they plan to power over there with solar panels, I could tell you this. I don't think ultimately they would end up as much as they say that they would buy geothermal energy and other energy. I feel like this thing would end up be the other way around. I think that they would connect to the grid and they would end up selling us energy from the same solar over there, in my estimation. And, well, for me, this is one of the things that the government should ask them. They say they plan to generate 70% of the power through solar, but how much power do they intend actually to generate? How much? Well, won't be the load. 10? Well, if they got to do 7 out of 10, 7? If they could do 7, and SK could find a way to do 50, in my estimation, we could do something. And when you look at the technology also that has developed through the years, solar panels could be effective, particularly if I say you train people now to maintain the solar panels, which is not as unlikely as you would think. You could get people trained to service these solar panels, and especially if it's a big project, is a lot of hand you're gonna need to service them. You need people trained to dispose of them. You need people trained to dismantle them. All these different things. So, in my estimation, there is something to work with over there, and Destiny done give it the hint. But we still saying we not got the capital to develop it. But I don't necessarily know if we have come up with that kind of vision. 'Cause I don't necessarily think that he's gonna be putting in like the majority of the capital or anything. We haven't heard about any of what he gonna be putting in directly. We not hear how much shares he gonna have in this. We hear that we gonna hear. That's what we hear. That we gonna end up in here. But we don't know that to be factual. Not this moment in time. So, if the Straits of Hormuz remain closed, you could look for the parties in power to continue to lose faith from the people. They will lose popularity, and everything from there will depend upon what the message is. In the case of the premier, I don't think that the premier has ever been as vulnerable, and I'm not speaking about politically in terms of if they were planning to do crypto mining at Destiny or any other company planning for such, will need lots of power, so the alternative energy will be necessary. Listen, if them man plan to do crypto mining over there, the amount of power what they plan to generate from the solar energy gonna be just as big as what SK generate. And if it's just as big as what SK generate, then let me let you know something. Abi could do it too. And do it organically. And be a sunlight in a Nevis, in a nobody who gonna argue that then Abi thing. It could start small and build. But this would have to be not just the vision, but execution. This got to be all hands on deck. Everybody believe in this year. Crypto mining, yeah. The servers and that type of situation is gonna demand a lot of energy. We not hear nothing about AI from them, but we hear crypto. The crypto is also though affected by the AI in terms of that there's competition for server space right now. And as I would have indicated, things like the silicon needed for the chips, for the phones, what we pan, for the laptops, for the TV, all of them things there. Some of the parts necessary come out of the Straits of Hormuz, and some of that is getting harder and harder to get. So that would also have a impact on the crypto space if mining is what Destiny plan to do. But boy, I don't know how they're going to get the water necessary to mine. I am looking at Nevis, and I got to say, the desalination plant has to be contributing heavily to take off a lot of pressure. Now, I did a video and I tell you about some of the byproducts, and I still believe we need to check out that. So make sure everything good. Make sure everything good. But with regards to adding more water to the system, that there has to be a godsend at this particular moment in time. Hopefully, this year, the Caribbean get the wet part of the El Nino pattern. God, they say we in El Nino this year. My time, El Nino settings this year. So we shall see what that brings to the region. Is there anything else? Get there. Me not understand. You know, understand. There was supposed to be a video with CARICOM. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, man. Okay. Yeah, let me play the CARICOM video. Come in a minute, see me friend. Come.
You're watching Caribbean Today. Growing tensions within the Caribbean community, CARICOM, are raising fresh questions about transparency, unity, and the future direction of the regional bloc. At the center of the dispute is the reappointment of CARICOM Secretary General Carla Barnett and a sharp disagreement between member states, most notably Belize and Trinidad and Tobago. Belize Prime Minister John Presenio has thrown his full support behind Barnett, describing her as highly qualified and deserving of continued confidence. Speaking to reporters, Presenio expressed disappointment over the public.
So, there is an atmospheric water generation technology we could invest in. It will extract water directly from the moisture in the air. I have connection with some such companies. Moisture farm, but that sounds like a Star Wars business. But I do understand what you're saying because we do live in a highly humid environment. And so to support some of that out of the air, it would be an interesting concept. It sounds interesting. Man, propose it. I will look into it on my end. Sounds interesting. Atmospheric water generation technology. Yeah, I don't keep a note of this. I don't keep a note of this. I'm looking into this technology. Yeah, well, them make the story seem like this is a problem with Prime Minister Belize, but we know Dr. Joe is involved with this story here. I suppose we ain't see his English name is flat. Technology has been around for a bit. I tell you, I don't see it, but only on Star Wars.
Opposition coming from Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Carla Prasad Bisesar, making it clear that Belize is standing firmly behind Barnett. He emphasized that while improvements can always be made, any concerns about Barnett's leadership should be handled internally among CARICOM heads, not aired publicly. For Presenio, the issue is not just about one individual, it's about preserving unity within the regional organization. But
I think that's a fair assessment of the situation. I think for the most part, everybody understand because I'm not a camera funny. But with regards to the procedure as she described it, And I mean, even as described by the Prime Minister, it does not seem like everything went as it should have. There's a small issue. I don't even think that it would affect her appointment as far as if they go through the correct procedure. But at this point, they're just arguing about whether or not the correct procedure. And Nevis is also involved. We are the heart of the story. Secret meeting in Four Seasons. I don't think CARICOM should be airing their laundry publicly. TOT with all this geopolitical TOT with all this geopolitical tensions. Now is not time to appear weak or divided. That is also a fair comment. But we know Kamala is a disruptor. And she ain't for all of this thing here. You know?
Trinidad and Tobago sees the situation very differently. Prime Minister Prasad Bisesar has strongly criticized what she calls a surreptitious and flawed process used to secure Barnett's reappointment, arguing that her government was effectively excluded from key discussions. Her administration has called for greater transparency, requesting documentation, including meeting minutes, performance evaluations, and correspondence to justify the decision. Foreign Minister Sean Sobers has echoed those concerns, stressing that while Trinidad and Tobago remains committed to CARICOM, it has serious reservations about the organization's governance and decision-making processes. Much of the dispute stems from a closed-door CARICOM leaders' retreat held during the February summit in Basseterre, where the decision was made to reappoint Carla Barnett for another 5-year term. According to CARICOM chairman Terence Drew, Trinidad and Tobago was not excluded but rather chose not to fully participate. Drew released extensive correspondence showing that all member states were informed about the retreat and its agenda.
That was one from Dr. Drew. If we got to say that she Kamala shouldn't have to hear all this thing, Dr. Joe also supposed to know who he deal with. How you gonna put up all of that kind of information there? No. Put your humbly woman like us on. You got to call her. You got to even listen. At this point, you gotta go Trinidad. You gotta go Trinidad. And it seemed like you have somebody that even had to go like Bahamas and some other third country to really appease them. But definitely, you could not let go the correspondence. And once again, I mean, like, we don't have the full text, but you would see, I definitely read a letter because when this happened now, her response was to end up putting out her set of letters and her correspondence. So it turned into, as I said, a back and forth. So this was not started by Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, at least we got to say that.
He also revealed that Minister Sobers had been invited to attend in the Prime Minister's absence, but indicated he might not travel due to seasickness, a claim Sobers later said was made in jest. Ultimately, neither person.
The only thing I want to say is, right, I understand that whoever been a say like them a boss joke or whatever, and maybe listen. Here's what needs to happen. If a man say he not gonna travel because he does get seasick or whatever, and he actually boss joke, you got to ask if he's serious, huh? Because these are things where you do. You going somewhere with somebody and they tell you, "Bah, listen, I can't do this because I'm gonna get seasick." Because then, like, we will change the location. You know, you could have even explained to him, "Yo, big man is like 10 minutes and I have there, and so we good." 10 minutes, man. And you're all right. 10 minutes, and then after that, you got like another 10-minute drive. 20 minutes, and we have arrived at our destination. So I don't know, but you're not supposed to make them kind of shit. And if you and this and the other side, if you make them kind of joke there, and you just got like the politician laugh, the man does laugh after joke when at him sweet. Then you got to tell them, man, bye, me a joke. Me a come, what time the boat a go. It's open and public back and forth with leaders that are showing that we cannot and will not hold one head. And we have issues like like US shootings of boats in the region and the threat on Cuba. Sir, please, let me stay off of that shooting of boat on Cuba, because I heard a response from my goat with regards to boats and the threat that they are facing in the Caribbean Sea. And that was the kind of answer, that was the kind of time when I know that the goat, like, he ain't got it no more. This is Jordan, but this is Jordan after he come back from the retirement. This is Wizards Jordan, so we ain't gonna count that. But his response was basically to be like, man, I hope that the men are going out there and they're not transporting any illegal cargo. And make sure you're doing the right thing. And we're going to pray for you. And we hope that you come back. Yo, this is a leader of a country, He even up and say, bye, we not got the firepower to send people out there and do reprisals. Like, boy, me not even talk about a reprisal. What is happening is he basically saying, if you go out on the water and them man blow you up, because he even said, then I give you don't got no evidence, this is a summary murder, dead on the high sea. Them man no need to give no evidence or nothing. No? And at no point did he say, bye, this is he didn't call out and say who doing it. He just basically said, bye, God, don't put that the boy. Like, you ever go labor there? You think I want to go labor there?
Sad Cesar nor Sobers attended the retreat where the decision was finalized. Despite these explanations, Trinidad and Tobago continues to question the process, even suggesting that fresh elections for the Secretary General position could be considered. Persad Cesar has gone further, accusing CARICOM of lacking transparency and warning that such decisions could have long-term consequences for trust within the regional body. She also pointed to inconsistencies in communication, including messages indicating the retreat was for heads of government only, arguing that these contradictions raise serious concerns about how the decision was handled. Meanwhile, support for Carla Barnett has been building among other member states. Guyana has publicly backed both her leadership and the process used for her reappointment. Carla Barnett, who became the first female Secretary General of CARICOM in 2021, has been credited with steering the organization through a period defined by economic recovery efforts, climate challenges, and shifting geopolitical pressures. CARICOM Chairman Terence Drew has urged member states to recommit to internal dialogue mechanisms, warning that public disagreements risk undermining progress toward deeper regional integration. At CaribbeanToday.com, we cover your world.
stomach, yeah, boy. Yeah, so Guyana going with the money. God. Yeah, I just was going to say that Guyana is trying to. I think Guyana is attempting to renegotiate the deal that they had initially with the oil. No, Guyana is getting a pile of money. Eh? My God, in money. Guyana total revenue from oil exceeded US 8.25 billion approximately. Well, they got 1.7 trillion in total oil sales and royalties. Guyana, I think they want to renegotiate. They want to get a higher percentage. Obviously, it's their product. And if you think back, if you know anything about the 70s crisis, the skyscrapers that we see in Dubai came about because of the same crisis that I went Dubai realized, boy, this is where we got. This is how much it was. This is how much people need that thing. Yes, or so. In the 70s, people used to burn oil. Oil in 1973 being cost $3 a barrel. I can imagine that. Right now, I think we're at like 100 and let me see what the price of oil. Brent crude oil price $94. The price of oil, a barrel of oil in 1973 was $3. That's how cheap oil been. And after they realize what I got, that's when them man start to build skyscrapers. Qatar do sovereign wealth fund immediately, straight out the gate. So I totally agree with the statement by Dr. Joe. The public thing is not the best option. Well then, man, Al Kabalan, you got me confused, man. Because you can't agree with the statement from Dr. Joe. When a Dr. Joe start, they putting out things publicly, you know? What Dr. Joe should I do as the leader of CARICOM is call Kamala and say, Kamala, I'm here in Trinidad. Come meet me at this hotel, have a wonderful lunch, tell her how wonderful she is, and explain to her his position. Listen, ask him, hey, you want to do this over? We do this over. You want to do this in Trinidad, no? That way you want? We could do this. Cause at this point in time, everybody not got to come on. We not got to do like a whole conference, you know. We have already established that emissaries may be sent with clear instructions to vote for Ms. Barnett, yes or no. So, me not feel like you go agree with you, but I also say the public thing is not the best option. You should not do the public thing. But oil in 1973, $3 a barrel. Today, $94 a barrel. Oil triple as a result of the crisis there. That's also one of the things why we didn't go from $66 a barrel to $200 a barrel. I agreed with that statement, but I didn't agree with his actions. I'm in total agreement with your suggestion. I feel you. I feel you. But that was also one of the reasons why this crisis, although it's a major shock, you better believe it, is not comparable. And although the price earlier is down, let me see, price of Omani crude. Let me see some Omani crude. Price of Omani crude right now is $158. That is important to know. $158, Jesus. That is a lot of money. Price of Saudi oil per barrel. $108. And Saudi need to sell the oil at least $100 to break even. Saudi hemorrhaging money at this point in time. The Saudi sovereign fund. I'm not saying it's in a shambles, but them money ain't have the them man don't have the funds to splurge in the manner how they used to. You know, like they can't spend on everything right now. I don't know if y'all know if anybody who does watch golf. There's this thing called Live Golf. The Saudis attempted to buy golf, and people tell them that it wouldn't work and this and that. Them man was paying some people some major money. And Live is filing for bankruptcy. Live is getting out of here. Live is leaving this thing. I think the man pay Phil Mickelson close to like $1 billion to sign up. Them kind of figures. That the PM of SK recently signed MOUs with Guyana. Well, could you elaborate and tell me why it's important to note such? And the reason why I will tell you that my skepticism is this is the same prime minister who, when he signed the MOU with America to accept deportees, said that one thing you must know about MOUs is that MOUs are not binding. So are you saying that this MOU, in your estimation, is a pathway that the prime minister may use to find a more binding deal? So, for example, you think that this would lead to a trade deal with Guyana, where we are purchasing X amount of some commodity, and Guyana is purchasing another amount of some other commodity to balance the trade? Understanding that Guyana is the only country in the world that could sustain itself. Guyana is the only country in the world with everything. No? Guyana is supposed to be so rich. Oh my God, that country. Guyana is supposed to be rich. They, as I said, they were trying to renegotiate the oil thing, get a higher percentage. If Guyana ever get 50% royalties on the oil, right? If Guyana ever manage to take over the oil in the same way like Saudi Aramco and them thing there, tell yourself Guyana is gonna be one of the richest countries in the Western Hemisphere. Guyana is gonna have people. Listen, Guyana is gonna be the Saudi Arabia of the Western Hemisphere if them ever get to control them thing. LOL. I was just joking at the fact that he may be looking at those possibilities as Guyana is going to be thriving in the next few years. Listen, Guyana is not gonna be thriving in the next few years. No? Guyana has been thriving and will continue. Guyana is going to be. Okay, let me take it back. We're gonna be more reasonable because Guyana is not the size of Saudi Arabia. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find a comparable country and we're gonna say Guyana is gonna be UAE think Dubai, think Qatar when you think about Guyana. Because, yeah, I'm tell you the beautiful thing about Guyana, like them countries, Guyana does not have a big population. For this, Guyana is bigger than England, and population is less than 1 million people. With the oil and gold mines and the agriculture and forestry, so the PM is thinking ahead. I think that you think that the PM is thinking ahead. And one thing I want to do is tell you, I love your optimism. I love your optimism. Now, the question I ask you, maybe as you say, you're not thinking it can lead to that. But ultimately, what me let you know is, if, say, it's like when you meet somebody, you know, when we meet you, when we meet you, and we link up and so, you don't know there's some kind of feeling or process, you know. That's the MOU, you know. The MOU is the feeling out process. So right now, we're feeling out and we're feeling out. But what me I say is, when you and me bridging now, this is now when, like, we got a contract. So it's like you go call upon me go call upon you. We got a deal now. Right, but Guyana is close and presently a part of CARICOM. So it will be first in line. Not first. You better believe not first. But it will be good to got some kind of like basic relationship. But don't fool yourself in geopolitics and in thinking like we done before. It done. The CMI is what we got on Guyana. A years no me talk about Guyana, you know. Yeah. So the same way how we got eyes on Guyana, yeah, other people watch the same thing. All of us. If you look on CPL, all the CPL finals of recent times, Guyana them keep on. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. Remember, Eskin and Guyana had a long-term relationship. Eskin used to bring laborers to cut cane and even develop families here as a result. Well, the good thing about Guyana, hear what the beautiful thing about Guyana is. The beautiful thing about Guyana is we understand them and we got them in we society and we're familiar with them. You understand? We know about Foxconn. At this point, Foxconn buy. Oh gosh, nah. You check? So we go walk it out with GT bridging them. That give us a kind of base with which, as I said, to deal with the intermediaries in Latin America. So that's like the entrance. That's supposed to be the gateway now into Latin America. If you're going Brazil, then you don't know it's Portuguese. And that's when you're going left. If you go right, well, you don't know it's Espanol. Once again, we got a small little French outpost down there in French Guyana. But in reality, we're dealing with Espanol. I think Suriname speak Dutch. Suriname might speak Dutch or French or something like that. But we supposed to look at Guyana because of our cultural take cricket, Shonda Paul settings. We don't know. We good with digital them, man. So we supposed to use that as a gateway. Or the fact that we share the English language is a benefit in any relationship where we go look to farm with them at this particular time. And the next thing is, who ain't like some curry every now and again. You understand what I mean? Say? Little routine and so. But remember in the Navy spy, he had this lady using make roti shell. Oh my God! Wow. Yeah, Guyana has added to the cuisine, give you a little different option. Some chickpeas in your body, you know, and some roti. But Guyana is definitely a partner to cultivate, a partner to secure energy from, and as I say, a gateway. Because I do believe there needs to be hedging. You can't put right now there is a conversation. And the conversation always is, well, what gonna happen if tropical no come in? There are harbors in South America that have some of the things that what we need. So maybe we don't need to be at our moment in time worrying about, well, what happen if tropical no come in? Right now, one of the things that we need to do is bring in a little competition, because that might be what we need to bring down the prices them to. If we could get a South American banana, make it worse, we might end up get to find out that some of the banana then what we get come from South America, go North America, and then come back down here. You know, different fruits and them type of things. So there is a fear, economic and even national security imperative in diversifying where we are getting our food from, our power from, everything. Everybody are diversified at this point in time. You got European countries who have never sought relationships with South America. All of a sudden, them are signing deals. All of a sudden, they find it necessary that they need to have not trade MOU. Like Joe, they're getting down to business. They're talking about trade deals. Yeah, we will be purchasing X amount of this and X amount of that. We were sending here, there, and everywhere. So, South America got in rare earths. If when we being real and we talking about what going on, right? Dr. Joe went to Nigeria recently, and for me, I don't know what other people's impressions are, but for me, it felt more like the emphasis was on cultural exchanges and exploration, personally, of those persons of Western Africa, and a kind of reconnection with roots, and as I said, sharing of culture, masquerade, all them type of things there. We not here no trade MOU. No, okay. We hear nurses, I think. Some of the countries them want look oil. You know that they have gone to Nigeria. The same Nigeria where Dr. Joe been. And them gone to Nigeria and they want to ship oil from Nigeria around the Horn of Africa, which is down to the bottom of South Africa, and then into the Indian Ocean. They want to sign trade deals to do that. We who know from the African slave trade that you could easily sail a boat from Nigeria, bound some down in and dock in Brazil, and then add one to the Caribbean. Do you know that to go to Brazil neither, you know, in these times? But I'm just saying, it is an easy jet out into the water, and you reach with the trade winds. And you don't hear that we sign any kind of trade deal. And Dr. Joe went at a time when the war in Iran is going on. And you know what Dr. Joe come back with? Nurses. And the potential for further discussion. At this particular moment in time, there has been enough of Dr. Joe and the Nigerians. When there are negotiations, when negotiations playing out in the real world, the principals meet at the beginning of the negotiation and at the end of the negotiation. They meet to smooth out and to begin the formalization of a relationship. They smooth out that. And then at the end, when there is something concrete to sign, they will then end up link up again to say, well, okay, this is the conclusion of the negotiation, and it could take days, it could take months, it could take years, but this is the conclusion of the negotiation, and we are here to formalize and to say, more than the MOU, this is the deal what we come to. Just like when they say that they just go and speak to airlines and we see them sign deals, not MOUs, deals. Gotta be legally binding. You go over there and you're not coming back with this. You're telling me, boy, MOU? No. I want words. I don't want an acronym. I want words. And the word I want is contract. I could deal with also treaty. That's fine. Them kind of things that would get me in the direction. But once again, with this Africa thing, Dr. Joe, there is a bold approach that I think could capture more people. And still, when we're talking about the negotiation again, in between the two principles, the two heads meeting, once again at the beginning and the end, sometimes in the middle, if there is something, that somebody feel like, yeah, this got to be, we meet face to face, so hammer out that one, and then we could proceed. But generally, you must have emissaries. Dr. Denzel Douglas should be doing his job. And the rest of Dr. Denzel Douglas' team should be instrumental. This is foreign affairs. Let Dr. Joe need to be in Singits, taking care of Singits affairs at this particular moment in time. Election come to, no? So this is not no rocket science or nothing that he don't need to be. At this time, it's emissary time. Send people on your behalf because, well, you got to deal with Singits people at this moment in time. So in between now, Yusuf, and in addition to Denzel Douglas, if the deal involve agriculture, well, then you involve the agriculture minister, the health minister, etc., etc., etc. And where any other ministry they also fall to you, Once again, you're out of that. And really and truly, even them ministers there, they ain't needed because they are also principals. You suppose to got people lower down. These are your negotiators. Them understand, yo, this is what people want. This and this is what we could give. That's it. Let's see. 5 more minutes really. I have to hire for about half an hour, 40 minutes. Do better than that. But next week, well, let me talk to one thing. Next week, don't be heavy in terms of local if you're looking for that. There was also the Nevis Civil Society. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not gonna say exactly what I want to say, but I'm gonna leave you with this on that topic there. The Nevis Civil Society town hall presentation. At one point in time, I heard Mr. Joseph Parry say, you know, there was a rumor because we had a program in agriculture where people, we were farming all year round, so we could supply the hotels and the people. And he said, at one point in time, the laborers end up and start to compete with the primary farmers, and then people lose interest and the whole thing brought down. And Mr. Parry end up and said, I heard about it, you know. And I was the Minister of Agriculture, but I didn't check to see if anything got suffered through. I think the other presenters, Danny, and my family, Glendale. Danny and Glendale, them been good. But Mr. Parry, I was disappointed. Okay, since it's soon finished, 4:20. No celebrations and news, as we still have not sorted out the cannabis regulations, especially in relation to designated smoking areas. Well, even with that, man, listen, I got a video next week where the premier is gonna speak about cannabis, right? And let me just lay the foundation for that video there by telling you. The premier's secret power is simply to describe a situation. He will not take a position, or he will take every position. And when you take every position, you could never be wrong. At this moment in time, I think that people need, if you concerned with cannabis, okay, and you are speaking to somebody who want to be your elected representative, you need to ask them a couple questions. Number one, what is your position as it relates to cannabis? Number two, what legislation, how are you going to fix this? What you going to do to make this thing happen? And it is important in that school to understand that if you're dealing with cannabis right now, your federal representative is as important as your local representative. I've been saying and suggesting, hinting that the NIA does have the power in their hand to do something with regards to this cannabis. They have said that is a federal issue. All right then. They are encouraging from the sidelines while still at the same time saying, but they're disappointed that divisions are being targeted. I don't want to go too much in it, but there's contradictions all over the place. My position is that there is too much legislation with not enough clarity. You cannot meet any elected official. Listen. You can't even meet an unelected official right now and ask them how many people have received a license to grow cannabis, and they answer you. Only the premier could tell you how much of people get locked up, because them who have been listening to the premier, no. They will die of ignorance. And the rest of them not logging into the press conference, so them no neither. If you ask them right now, they can't tell you. So they're telling you it's a federal issue, but you ain't seeing the pressure from the federal ministers who say, well, it's a federal issue and I've been a kick up, no? Habitat, if I be playing I be gonna get destiny sign. Habitat, them man not gonna target I be ganja man them. Habitat, I be good. When I be go with them man and I be drinking with them man and so them man a pay the bill. But why be happen? Them and I invite I be down a music festival, I be see them down in the box, I be smile with them, everything good. But then on the street, and everybody could go up in the box. So the street man then got to see for themselves. That's how that gotta go. So at the same time, with that situation that we don't have, we have leaders who say they're sympathetic, but at the same time they tell you they're not gonna power, so they just end up pathetic. They go down with the simp part. They're simping too, and they're pathetic, but they're really sympathetic for real, boy. Yes, Nevis has the power to. They have opted to not take actions and have electorate silent as well, not holding them accountable. Opted to not take actions and the electorate is silent. Well, we're not going to say that the electorate is totally silent, but the electorate has not coalesced into a movement to get rights in that particular regard. I would have mentioned that there are some people, from what I understand, they say, well, bye. So I'll be a march of Shabbats. When me lock up, then I had no march with me. When me get charged, me not see none of them people, yeah. And there has to be something that could be done so that for me, this was never supposed to be about banking. He could have been the face of it, but this was more about marching so that nobody got to worry about them thing there. It should have been a march for everybody, including who don't partake, but they just got people who would get a thing. Nobody want to be harassed at the end of the day. So it's not that the electorate is silent. You can't look at the fact that there was a march the other week and say that the electorate is silent. The electorate is merely, as I said, they have not coalesced. Oh, Ginger, you just gotta be you. They have not coalesced. They ain't come together with a oneness. There are people who could have participated in that march there And just by their mere presence, I think they feel like maybe people would have been embarrassed. They would have embarrassed somebody, but I feel like the effect that it would have had would have been different. People would have said, "You a match too? All right then, okay." Because in certain things, unfortunately, Nevis is still living in the 90s. If folks listen to the march, it was said that that march was not just about Banky and Jama. That was stated many times. Yes, I understand that it was stated at the march, you know, but I can't wait until I reach the march. We'll make sure that day is clean. That there got to be a thing that is at the beginning and at the center at all moments in time. This thing got, and there also has to be networking. You know, you check. I'm a big advocate of start a chat. Start a chat. Pan, I could tell you the app we use. Kind of younger people were skeptical, but start a chat with start a chat pan an encrypted network, something where everybody could get, and make sure people go organize. Make sure people go got the street cannabis cup and them type of thing. That would be how you operate. Cause still at the same time you gotta remember it decriminalized, you know, so you're still gonna be alright. But it's just there needs to be communication. But the point you are making is valid and needed to be highlighted. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. It's alright to, as I say, like a big face is understand is Nubian and Banky and Jama. But you got to make sure that people understand and feel it by you. You march, you might be marching for yourself, represent you might be marching for yourself, but you're also marching for people who have been victimized and to stop this year expeditiously. So, and another thing I would point out to you is that there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect in between the youths and the elders, and so we ain't seeing I feel like the turnout from the youths was disappointing. Me see none me bridging. You understand them kind of situation there. So for me, the communication pan a certain scale was not there. I ain't see none the females necessarily would us be on the scheme at the event. So I feel like in those ways, that's what I'm saying. Like you need more communication throughout this thing. Cause that's the only way to get people on the same page and ultimately to make the political change. Because okay, why watch it? It is a political change need to be made. And I'm not talking about changing the party. I'm talking about the solution you're looking for is a political mechanism of changing a law or a policy. So the solution you require has to be a political solution. And if you want to gain a political solution, that's going to come through communication within the class of people, and ultimately coming up with a plan, everybody committing, and then moving forward. So it's like, ain't to say, Alan gonna say, we are gonna march Tuesday. No, me gonna bring it to the chat, and me gonna say, hey, we wanna go a demonstration. We wanna know when is the time when most of us could make it to this thing and really have a impact. And then no, when we have collectively come to the decision, all of these things, this is when now we could commit and say, well, bye, yeah. And we could come out and, as I say, have a bigger impact. And this does not just apply to cannabis, wherever it is you want to push forward with, that's how you're going to approach the situation, in my estimation. Yeah, the last two things I'm going to say is, for tomorrow is the topics with Yason and Banky. Tune in for that, and you don't know Friday is everything agriculture with Banky and Yason again, hitting you again. So you look out for them thing. They see Banky got a sponsor. The topics have a sponsor. I don't know if it has been rolled out yet, but you're supposed to be seeing that shortly. Big up Islander Sports. And that leading to the last thing, which is, if anybody is looking at the coverage and would like to sponsor the show, would like to make any kind of donation, reach out to Real Entertainment Network, reach out to IRA. You know, reach out to me, reach out to them. They're going to start out what going on. And in that way, we'll be able to maintain some independence and to upgrade the equipment what we have. Because you will see that we are serious and we know what's going on. We got people who know what to get. And in that way, we'll be able to improve and to bring even better stuff to you in the future. So, if anybody want to get involved in that, as I say, reach out to Real Entertainment Network, and we're going to see what we can make happen for you. Have a good night. Enjoy the Western Ohio week this April. Gigi had a birthday yesterday. I don't tell you, if he's one of them where those got a birthday for a month, enjoy your birthday for the month, you know? And have a good time. But overall, everybody bless up ourselves. And I will see y'all again next week. We're okay. Yeah. Yeah, see y'all next week, you know?
What a sight to see, what a sight to see, what a colossal. Working and working to prosper. What you gonna stop for? Keep on it's right on the corner. Hey, make way when I'm weird there. Hey, tell the ears that them stay there. Hey, that is your destiny. Maybe what you ought to be. Even if no one you reach nowhere. So you have to find a way. Them no one you reach nowhere. So you have to find a way. Them no one can see you fly.